7. Your chairman is armed with a plethora of Nicorette gum. We shall begin the Memphis City Council meeting. Colleagues, I'd like to welcome our chaplain for the day, Reverend F.J. Harris, Sr. of Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church, invited by our very own Councilman Edmund Ford. The prayer will then be immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Harris, I believe you're with us digitally. You have the floor.
Yes, I am. Good evening to everyone. Shall we pray? Eternal God, our Father, in the name of your Son, again, we come acknowledging that you and you alone, your God. Thank you again for the privilege that the creature can call the Creator, our Heavenly Father. And because your name is holy and sacred, deserving of honor and reverence, and again, we cry out hallelujah. God, we tell you thank you for who you are, for all of your blessings that we've already been the recipients of. Thank you again for being better to us than we've even been to ourselves. We pause now to acknowledge our own sin and our sinfulness. We ask for forgiveness. We ask that you restore the right fellowship with you, that you would use us to bring honor to your name, be a blessing to the body of Christ, and then earth and all that we come in contact with. We ask now your blessing on this meeting, every home that's represented. We ask that you bless in this meeting tonight with a spirit of unity and a oneness of mind. Lord, we bless your name. We tell you thank you now. It is in Jesus' name, who is our Christ, that we do pray. Thank God and amen.
Amen. Amen. Councilman Jones, would you lead us Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Ford, you're recognized.
All right. Reverend, thank you for those beautiful words. And I know we're virtual today, but as chaplain of the day, City of Memphis, I'd like to hereby entitle all the rights and honors and privileges appearing to the office and display this certificate. You will receive a certificate and you will receive a gift from the City Council. And we would like to just thank you today under our chair, Frank Corvette, Council Member Edmund Ford Sr. And Reverend, I want to thank you for all the things that you've done for our neighborhood. And thank you for letting us use your church a few weeks ago to have our town hall meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Reverend, thank you again for leading us out. Going to be, I think, a pretty challenging meeting today. So thank you so much for your kind words, your inspiration to lead us through this. Okay, that being done, Madam Comptroller, call the roll.
Councilmember Finale.
Here.
Carlisle. Here. Thomas. President Ford. Johnson. Jones.
Here.
Logan. President.
Here.
Robinson. Smiley.
Present.
Present. Warren.
Present.
Harry Levesque.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, no quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Council Vice Chair Lady Swearingen, have you read the previous meeting minutes?
I've read the minutes and find them to be in order, and I so move for the adoption of the September 7th meeting minutes.
Been moved by Vice Chair Lady Swearingen, second by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members of the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on previous meeting minutes. Please prepare the screen and cast your votes. Thank you. Previous meeting minutes are approved. Welcome to the September 21st, 2021 regular meeting of the Memphis City Council. Notice of the meeting was placed on the City Council webpage regarding how the public may electronically access the meeting and a recording of the meeting, and to provide written comments concerning any agenda item or any other matter prior to this meeting. Public comments were to be submitted to the Memphis City Council 24 hours prior to today's meeting. Vice Chair Lady Swearingen will read those comments at the appropriate time. She will only read those comments that included the requisite information, which was the person's name and address. Incomplete comments or those received late will be sent to the council records and placed in the file. Items to be held are items 25 and 42. So if you're here for item 25 or 42 online, those items are held.
Item 42 is held till November 16th.
Item 25 is 2 weeks. So 11/16 on 42 and 25 on 2 weeks. Good to go. All right, got that done. Madam Comptroller, call item 3, please.
Item number 3 is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code to create a wellhead overlay protection district for the city of Memphis, up for third and final reading. This affects all council districts. This ordinance is sponsored by Councilman Ford, Smiley, and Kovac. The case number is ZTA 21-03, ordinance number 5795.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Comptroller. Can I get a motion and a second to move to the floor? All right, it's been moved by Councilman Canale, seconded by Councilman Carlisle. Attorney Wade or Mr. Whitehead? Or Mr. Whitehead?
Thank
You
you.
are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Whitehead with the Division of Planning and Development. Mr. Wade and I discussed that perhaps I should go ahead and give a staff report and then hand the floor over to him. And I'll devote my time specifically on both the overview of what this ordinance accomplishes, but then specifically what the Land Use Control Board, or more specifically, what the Division of Planning and Development made insofar as changes that were approved after being presented to the Land Use Control Board. So essentially, this ordinance would create a wellhead overlay protection district. Mr. Chairman, the zoning code has several overlay districts, and they are exactly what they sound like they are. They lay on top of the zoning map and can contain an additional set of regulations. So this particular overlay would regulate the areas. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
This specific overlay would regulate what the Memphis Light, Gas, and Water Division calls our wellhead zones 1 and 2. Those are measured in fairly round, but not completely circular shapes around our wells. Our being public wells. This ordinance would create overlay districts, independent, more of an archipelago of overlay districts around these wells, specifically for the city, the public wells that we all utilize, not a private well that a business or a farm would use. So in these wellhead protection areas, the way we have amended this, the division, specific uses that are deemed to contain potential contaminants by the TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, would go through a process. We would flag them. We, the Division of Planning and Development, would flag them, and this list is contained in section 8.12.3 A of our ordinance. They contain gas stations, manufacturing facilities of certain dirty uses. We would go through a certain process by which we would flag those uses and we would send them to MLGW. MLGW would have a person called the Wellhead Administrator who would then review whether or not those uses that we just flagged are in one of these overlay zones. MLGW is a little reticent to publicize the map that contains all these zones for homeland security purposes. So we would flag these uses, send them over to MLGW. MLGW would say yay or nay, whether they're in one of these wellhead zones or not. If it's a yay, we would then ask the applicant to file a special use permit application. And Mr. Chairman, as you know, that is a 2-hearing process. We mail notices in advance of the first hearing at the Land Use Control Board, followed by the second hearing before this body. At the conclusion, this body would have the power to approve or reject that application. If approved, the ordinance does have some remediation remedies. Let's say, for instance, a gas station. Maybe one of the conditions of approval of a gas station in the wellhead zone would be some kind of extra attention to the tank, as an example. Or maybe this body would say there are no remediation remedies that we feel comfortable with. We have to reject your special use permit. So that's the meat and potatoes of it, Mr. Chairman. And to list the 4 changes that the division, my division, made to this ordinance, if you look at your DPD staff report, I list those on page 1. The first is we've just given it nomenclature on where in the world in the UDC this would exist. It would be a new 8.12 chapter. Number 2, demarcating the list of uses that we want to see go through this process, those potentially dirty uses. That's the second change. The third change would square the language with regard to pipelines with the language of agenda item number 2. So we differentiate between existing pipelines, future pipelines, and existing rights-of-way, and then new pipelines. And then finally, the last change we offered were to just make it consistent with the language of this. Wellhead protection overlay was replaced with wellhead overlay protection district. So those were the 4 changes, Mr. Chairman, and I'll hand the floor back over to you or Mr. Wade.
Councilor Wade, Doc Warren is in the queue. Would you like to speak? Because I was ready to recognize you. Would you like Dr. Warren to ask? Do you have a question of staff? Dr. Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was hoping you could refresh our memories again in Section G with existing pipelines remaining through the special exception process and wellhead overlays through a special use permit process, because I think that's one of the things we tried to do as we were talking to our local businesses. They were more interested in their existing things having a special exception, and I wanted to make sure that they knew that that was still here.
It is. I can address that. I can walk you through the changes.
Okay.
All right, Councilor Wade, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead, for your overview. I guess this is taking a long time to get to a point where we can try to address an issue that seems to have gone away. I want to thank Councilman Warren for bringing the issue to us and bringing his ordinance to us. I think, through this whole process, the Plains pipeline has decided not to go forward, so I don't think we have the same urgency to do things. But, I think you asked me to come forward with a comprehensive ordinance that dovetail with state law, federal law, and more importantly would be defensible in court, and that's pretty much what I've tried to do. I'll get to the issue. We have 2 other ordinances that are on the table, and I'll give you my take on those in a minute. But what I've given you in front of you is a copy of the marked ordinance that has red changes. And so I just want to do a couple of things, just kind of address This ordinance basically follows our UDC process for special use permits. This brings the matter directly to you for the final decision. You have the ability to consider proposals up or down. This does not prohibit any uses except those that are within 750 feet of a well. That is called Zone 1 under TDAC's regulations. Zone 2 is usually a little bit larger than that under TDAC's regulations, but MLG&W, in conjunction with the assistance from Caesar, obtained a different model for protecting Zone 2. Zone 2 is a wider area outside the close proximity of a well, and MLG&W got TDAC to approve a waiver to allow them to use a 40-year time of travel model. That basically makes, I think we have 8 or 9 of these wellhead zones in the city. They are usually somewhere between 2.5 miles long and sometimes 1.5 miles wide. They are sometimes larger because the wells are often on the periphery of these zones, which means you have to go another 750 feet beyond the 40-year time of travel. These zones pretty much encompass the core of Memphis. A lot of these zones are already in what has been called black neighborhoods. They're in the South Memphis area where the Plains pipeline wanted to travel. This zone would prohibit them from doing that without your approval. It also addresses areas, let me see if I can identify them generally for you. Areas around North Parkway, North Watkins, Ayers Street. There's some South Highland Street, South Goodless Street around the university. There's others that are Norris Road, Elvis Presley, South Lauderdale Street, 3rd Street, East Mallory. There are areas in Winchester Road, Hickory Hill, East Range Road, East Shelby Drive, Kirby Parkway, Raleigh LaGrange, Sycamore View, Pleasant View Road, Witten Road, West Shelby Drive, West Holmes Road, South 3rd Street. This is the Davis Well Field where Plains wanted to locate their pipeline. But this ordinance would require them to obtain a special use permit from you if they decide to do that. So this gives you a sampling of where these areas are. They are a lot of times in African American neighborhoods. So this whole notion of racial justice, I think, would be accomplished by this ordinance as well as some of the others. You asked me to interface with the business community. I've done that and gotten their comments. I've gotten comments from TDAC. I've gotten comments from MLG&W. We have had it vetted by Land Use Control Board, which has approved it and recommends your approval of it. So with that, I think we have exhausted all stakeholders in the process. We have considered Dr. Warren's ordinance and tried to incorporate a lot of the features that he has in there. I think we have a more robust administrative approval process. This ordinance uses a wellhead administrator who I think you have met. He deals with these wells on a daily basis and is very, very expert at his job. We are fortunate to be able to have that person giving you advice and input, which you don't have in any of the other versions. So the way it works is that that person would interface with a developer, would evaluate their proposal, and to the extent that he felt the wellhead administrator needed additional information, he could obtain that and use their contracted expertise, which they presently use Caesar to assist them in doing their wellhead protection plan and other activities related to the well. So you have a wealth of experience that would be giving you a recommendation up or down. I think that's important because when you go to court to defend your action, you want to make sure you have a rational basis for it and you have the most sound and expert advice to help you make a decision. The ordinance you have before you is basically, we adopted and agree with Land Use Control Board's changes. We have incorporated TDAC's changes. We have incorporated MLG&W's changes. So what I would be recommending to you tonight is that you amend what's on the floor to adopt this as a substitute ordinance. I think the number is 5795. And that's what you have in front of you with all of the various changes. I'm trying to think if there's any other issue that I want to, Councilman Warren asked about the exemptions. What we did is took, like I said, we borrowed from his ordinance and borrowed from Mayor Harris's ordinance, and we have used the exempt land use language that's in the 1,500-foot setback ordinance, and that's in subparagraph G on page 7. I think we received an email yesterday from Valero, which indicated that they favor this ordinance as being a more balanced approach, a more expert approach, and they indicated that the language that you see in G is exactly what they had requested from the county. Essentially, what I've tried to do is provide you with a robust process by which you would have the best information available to make a decision about an application for any of the uses. And let's look at those. I think Josh went through them briefly. But if you turn to page 5 and 6 of the red line ordinance that you have before you, you will see that this covers a number of activities other than crude oil pipeline. I think this is important because, in my opinion, a targeted ordinance where you target crude oil pipelines may be legally indefensible in court. Federal courts, has been our experience. We've had a lot of litigation with telecom companies where we have tried to restrict their activities and our rights of way. In the federal courts, I mean, I have been excoriated about, being overly aggressive with some of these interstate commerce activities. So that would be one concern I have. And I think having a varied target where and this is based primarily on TDAC's list. TDAC's regulation lists these uses, and this is what it says, is that a significant potential contaminant source means a facility or activity that involves the handling of materials that could be readily introduced into the water supply via spill, leakage, intentional discharge, or other release of contaminants, and presents a likely threat to the drinking water quantity and the public health. And then they identify specific activities, but they don't limit them to these activities. And these are the lists that you see in front of you. So there is a rational basis for us identifying these as being targeted industries that we would require to get a special use permit. The other point I want to make about this ordinance is that I think it is consistent with federal law. You've heard, and I've given you opinions before, that I had some concern about whether targeted ordinances targeting pipelines would be preempted by federal law. There's a federal statute that regulates safety of oil pipelines, and to the extent the underpinning of any ordinance would be based on that concern, I would be concerned that it could be preempted. This ordinance is different. There is a federal statute that provides for protection of drinking water. It requires states to adopt legislation that protects drinking water. That is a federal law. Courts would have to read that law in harmony with the oil pipeline law, and it is my opinion that following that paradigm, ours would be sustainable in court. And that's essentially what we've done. TDAC is the agency that has been delegated by the General Assembly to administer the Drinking Water Act. They have adopted a Drinking Water Act of 1983 and also an Anti-Pollution Act to protect drinking water. And that's what these regulations flow from and what we have adopted pretty much in our ordinance. So with that, I highly recommend that this is good public policy. It is something that preserves your legislative discretion and gives you the ultimate decision as to whether to allow pipelines or any of the other prohibited use or targeted uses. It also provides you with expertise and backup to make the right decision. And with that, I think that's why I would favor this ordinance over the other two. Now, I want to give you a chart and walk you through all three to give you things to think about in terms of, it's ultimately your decision whether to adopt one, two, or all. I think that would create a lot of conflict in terms of administration, and I just want to walk you through some of the issues that I think you should consider. In this chart, I have set forth the three ordinances. One is the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance, which is in the first column. The other is the 1,500-foot Setback Ordinance, which is in the second column. And the third is the ordinance to protect the aquifer and environmental racism. As to the first category, Geographic Scope, while these ordinances are not exactly congruent in terms of their geographic scope, for all material purposes, they cover all major areas of the city. The Setback Ordinance basically prohibits pipelines in every area of the city for all practical purposes. The ordinance to protect the aquifer does pretty much the same, although it allows for a permitting process through a special use process, which I think is redundant of what the overlay does. But in geographic scope, some of them may be a little larger in scope than others, but for all practical purposes, they all get the job done. The Wellhead overlay ordinance that's before you is not applicable in unincorporated Shelby County. The setback ordinance is. The ordinance to protect the aquifer is not. We do not have the authority to adopt legislation for unincorporated Shelby County or for any other municipality. The Wellhead overlay ordinance is not applicable to any of the 6 other incorporated municipalities. The setback ordinance similarly is not applicable to any of the other incorporated municipalities. And if you were to adopt that ordinance, you would be the only incorporated municipality that it applied to. The reason for that is under the county's charter and state law, they are prohibited from adopting legislation that impacts the internal affairs of any other incorporated municipality. So without the consent of those municipalities, the setback ordinance has no application to them. The ordinance to protect the aquifer is not applicable in the other incorporated municipalities because you do not have the authority to do that. The Wellhead overlay ordinance has a comprehensive approval process. The setback ordinance partially does, and that's in the exception that Councilman Warren addressed. It basically provides that if you want to expand your facilities in an existing easement, you go through this special, I don't remember what they call it. The special exception process. Now, if you have an existing pipeline and you want to create a new pipeline in the same easement, then you have to go through a special use permit process similar to what we have here in the setback ordinance. As far as the ordinance to protect the aquifer, it did have an approval process, but I believe what's been presented deleted that process in the board, and now you have to have a special use permit from this body, which is redundant of what is in the Wellhead overlay ordinance. The Wellhead overlay ordinance does not change your legislative discretion, meaning you have the final decision to decide whether to let a project go or not. The setback ordinance does partially change your legislative discretion, and let me give you an example of how that happens. So if, let's say, Valero wanted to create a new pipeline within their existing right-of-way, and this body decided to grant a special use permit to Valero, and then it goes across the street and the county commission says no, they have in effect vetoed your decision. That is the downside whenever you adopt a joint ordinance. You have ceded some of your authority to the county commission, especially in the context of the example I just gave you where the pipeline is inside the city. So I'm always reluctant to advocate that you approve joint ordinances for that reason. Also, they're very cumbersome to adopt because they adopt it, we change it, they change it, we adopt it, we go back and forth like a ping pong ball. And that's why I have recommended that our ordinance deal with the city and that their ordinance deal with the county. I mean, it's almost sacrosanct that the county presents to us something dealing with the city, but that's your decision to make. But I know enough of you to know that you have some reservation about that process. Okay, does the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance uses expert staff to administer the approval process? The Setback Ordinance does not. It basically uses the standard special use permit process under the UDC, where you would not have the benefit of the wellhead administrator or Caesar or any other experts to give you guidance. The ordinance to protect the aquifer does not have a staff, does not have an administrator, does not have any of the technical capabilities that's in the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance. But the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance is of the same object to try to prevent and protect the aquifer. The Wellhead Overlay Ordinance does not require funding for the administrative process. MLG&W will appoint one of their, one of their staff to administer the process. The Setback Ordinance possibly has a unfunded mandate to it. The ordinance to protect the aquifer definitely would require an administrative staff to administer it if that's what you chose to do. Is the Wellhead Ordinance consistent with federal law? I've given you my opinion on that. Yes. Thank you. Is the Setback Ordinance consistent with federal law? That's questionable in my opinion because it targets only oil pipelines. And if the underpinning of the Setback Ordinance is public safety, then I think it has a possibility that it could be preempted. The ordinance to protect the aquifer basically targets hazardous material, but the primary object is to prevent oil pipelines. So I think for the same reason, it might be questionable under federal law. And this has consistently been my opinion to you. The Wellhead Ordinance is consistent with state water statutes. As I've told you, we follow and track the TDAC regulations with our ordinance. The Setback Ordinance, as I think Ms. Hensley told you, doesn't attempt to protect water. It attempts to protect neighborhoods and churches. And so that's not even applicable here. The ordinance to protect the aquifer may not be consistent with states' water statutes because they basically allow some development to coexist with wells, but the ordinance to protect the aquifer basically allows for a process to get an approval, but it basically limits anything within 1,000 feet of a well, which in essence constrains your ability to consider all factors. Is it consistent with TDAC regulations? Ours, the wellhead is, the setback is not applicable. And ours is consistent with TDAC regulations because they are more accommodating of other development in zone 2 of a wellhead zone, not zone 1. The ordinance to protect the aquifer pretty much shuts down everything close to a well. The Wellhead Overlay Ordinance has been vetted by LUCB, MLG&W, TDAC, and the business community. The Setback Ordinance has been vetted by LUCB, not by MLG&W, not by TDAC, and yes, it has been vetted by the business interests as evidenced by the exemption under that ordinance. I don't believe, I think there's been some vetting by the business community of the ordinance to protect the aquifer, but there's been so many iterations of it, I'm not even sure myself what's on the table, but we can talk about that later. comprehensive approval process, the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance does, going through Land Use Control Board, Setback Ordinance, partially only if you are within the exempt land use category. The ordinance to protect the aquifer, I think now they're deferring to our special use process, so that's basically partially as well. Is it supported by a rational basis? As I told you, we have followed the federal model, the state model, and I believe it is supported by a rational basis. The setback ordinance, I've had some debates with Ms. Hensley about some of the selection of the 1,500-foot setback, the number itself, what was the rational basis for it. Just so you know, we have a similar sort of setback for liquor stores, but it is 200 feet from residential areas. When you add residential areas to the ordinance, you pretty much preclude activity throughout the city. The ordinance to protect the aquifer, I think they have an expanded hazardous materials list, which is different from that adopted by TDAC. So with that, I would think you would have to have a rational basis to go beyond it, and I'm not sure that legally you could do it, but that's not my call to make. Do these ordinances protect vested property rights? Yes, the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance does, by virtue of the exempt land use section, which is identical to that in the setback ordinance. The language in the ordinance to protect the aquifer does not contain the same language in the other two, and so I don't believe it has the same scope and protection. All right, protects black neighborhoods, and this is a big issue that's been discussed a lot. As I said, the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance is covering black neighborhoods. The setback ordinance covers all neighborhoods, so obviously it would. The ordinance to protect the aquifer does as well. But I do want to just make a comment about the environmental racism issue. At Councilwoman Robinson's request, the MLG&W Water Lab came and made a presentation of how they treat and grade the quality of our water. And the representative made a very telling point. She said that the water lab reported that all citizens obtain drinking water from the same public water system. Thus, any impact on that system will affect all races equally. So this notion that there is some different water being drunk in the black neighborhoods and the white neighborhoods is not accurate. I think we heard from somebody that lived around the Army Depot that said they've been drinking contaminated water, and I don't know how that's possible in light of the fact that they get the water from the same place that we do. And as I told Ms. Hensley, I didn't believe that there was any evidence in the record to show that property values are affected by the existence of the myriads of pipelines that are already existing throughout the city. And just so you know, the biggest pipeline that traverses from west to southeast of the city is a 20-inch pipeline. It was built in 1992 by MLG&W. It is owned by MLG&W and leased to Valero. I have not seen any incident reports that have shown any leakage or any problems. It goes from the Valero plant down through to I-240 towards the airport, from the airport then due south to the state line. It goes through a number of neighborhoods today, and maybe Councilwoman Johnson can tell us whether it's had any impact on the property values. I don't believe it has. But that's, I mean, I think factually, if you go to court, we would be called out on these facts in demonstrating, you know, environmental racism. I think is going to be, I mean, I wouldn't know how to do it. Maybe the environmental lawyers can tell you how to do it, but it's always been my experience that when, except in certain limited circumstances, racism is not an offensive category. As my father told me, when you start echoing that statement, you lose. But in the context of employment law, criminal law, and other constitutionally protected areas, racism is certainly an element that can be proven in court. But I just don't, I mean, I'm just not seeing it as far as this is concerned. But nevertheless, I think the issue is, are we going to protect our neighborhoods? I think all of them do that. And so that with that, I think they all grade out the same. I think I have covered everything that I had intended to cover. The primary one is to urge you to adopt Substitute Ordinance 5795, and I will remind you that somebody would need to amend what's on the floor to substitute that for the ordinance that's being presented. And I can answer any questions that anybody has, and I'm sorry I took so long to go through this, but it's been a long journey trying to get it.
I think it's been very clear. Councilman Carlisle, you have something?
Mr. Chairman, based on the advice of council, I move to amend.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Carlisle to amend, seconded by Smiley. Okay, now we go into discussion on this. Councilman Warren, you are in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to make the motion to amend, but Carlisle got ahead of me. I think that this motion that we have before us is an excellent ordinance. It does a lot of the things that we want to have happen to stop any sort of damage to the aquifer and to the pipeline. And I appreciate the fact that Councilor Wade pointed out that it does go through both black and white neighborhoods and throughout most of the city. I do realize that we probably know a lot more about pipelines now than we did in 1992 when MLG&W built their pipeline. And we own that pipeline, so we're going to have to take care of it and make sure that it doesn't leak and we have to repair it. I would urge passage of this ordinance. I think it's an excellent way to protect our current situation. I don't think it's the only thing on the table that we need to discuss today. I think it has some limitations, as do each one of the three. And I would urge passage of this and await discussion and hearing what my colleagues think about the other two. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Warren. Councilman Smiley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask you this, Will. Vice Chair, since the chairman has left his seat, I was trying to figure out, are we going to talk about the other ordinance specifically, or are we just going to address this ordinance together? One at a time. Okay. Well, I can remove myself from the queue as it relates to this ordinance. Thank you, Vice Chair Carlisle.
Thank you, Councilman Smiley. Councilman Morgan, you're recognized. Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think this Wellhead overlay ordinance is an ordinance that protects our drinking water, protects our aquifer, and is legally defensible and is worth defending. And I think that is going to be a question we have to ask on these other two ordinances. If we do not, if they are passed and they are implemented, Not if, but when they are challenged, do we feel that they're legally defensible and want to commit the resources to something that might be likely to be overturned versus this wellhead overlay ordinance, which is defensible, and we do want to commit those resources because it's the fight worth having, and it still gets the job done, as the others might be redundant to that cause after this is passed. And I think there is a lot of support to pass this. One of my specific questions would be to Councilor Wade. On the end of page 5 and the beginning of page 6, it's under section A, and it's all those amended uses: automobile repair, junkyards, bus and truck terminals. And just for an example, in talking about whether an existing property is grandfathered in, I'll use Overton Park Golf Course as an example. So that is a golf course that undergoes a major renovation. Let's assume it's in the wellhead protection area. I don't know if it is. Would they need to apply to be able to do a renovation like that, or is it only new construction?
No, they would be required to apply.
Okay.
Because as I understand it, maybe Josh can address this. The UDC was amended to apply to the city and also, I think, to MLG&W, but I know there's also a state statute that frees MLG&W from local regulations. So maybe he can talk about the coverage of the UDC.
Yes. The UDC, when it was adopted in 2010, did something that at least its immediately preceding zoning code did not do, and that was cover city-owned properties. That said, when we adopted that, we had some unintended consequences. So then a few years later, we adopted a section 10.12 of the non-conforming section of the UDC that reads, "Under no circumstance shall any property or structure owned or leased by the city of Memphis or Shelby County that was constructed prior to January 1st, 2011, that's when the UDC became effective, be considered a non-conforming use or structure. Modifications, alterations, and expansions to said infrastructure may be performed, provided the bulk requirements of this code are met." So the UDC does cover city and county-owned properties, but we have amended and allowed for certain expansions so they're not treated like other nonconformities are.
Okay.
And let me just echo a couple of things. The General Assembly adopted what's known as the Vested Rights Doctrine, which it used to be highly litigated when zoning ordinances were adopted. If you had begun construction, then you would be grandfathered. Okay, so now if you obtain a permit for the construction under the Vested Rights Doctrine, you are grandfathered. The Overton Park Golf Course is being constructed, and we haven't even adopted this yet, so it would not be applicable.
I was just talking about, as an example, if this had been implemented before, would it cover things like major renovations to any of these facilities, golf courses as well? And then also the 16 items that are here, how was that deliberated and decided on? You know, it's hard to look at the list and see what's missing, but one that would jump out to me would be dry cleaners. Some of the worst EPA cleanup sites that we've had in the city of Memphis have been results of chemical leaks at dry cleaners.
The drinking water source protection regulations by TDAC contain a listing of significant potential contaminant sources, and all the things that you see before you are listed in that regulation. It does, however, say including but not limited to the following. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And so, I mean, if you wanted to add dry cleaners as one of the enumerated things, that could be an amendment to this ordinance. The reason Land Use Control Board tried to limit the scope to these major activities was because the drinking water source protection regulations encompass a variety of activities. And if we did not limit them to these major items, you would be considering at least 1,000 or more applications a year. So for administrative convenience, we have targeted only these. As we have experience with this, if we find there are other major offenders, we always can come back and add additional categories. But if you want to amend it to add dry cleaners, that would be appropriate.
No, I think that suffices me for the moment. I want to thank everybody that worked on this. This table that you provided of the comparisons with the yes, no's, and partialies and questionables, can we make this available on the city website for people? Because this has obviously generated a lot of interest. We've gotten a lot of emails, and this is one of the most helpful documents through this entire process that I've seen in trying to understand the differences between the three ordinances and pieces of legislation in front of us. So I think if staff could make that available on the city council website, that'd be very helpful for the public, who I know a number of them are listening in today, but aren't able to see this document in front of them. That being said, I hope my colleagues support this ordinance. This is really a professional job, well done, that I think really captures both the intention and the spirit and the legality of this issue in order to protect our aquifer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Morgan. Councilman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wade, thank you for this. You would make our jobs a whole lot easier if a lot of the decision-making that we had to do was listed like this. And so I echo some of the sentiments of Councilman Morgan. There are 18 different items on here, and I think that each of us probably would have, if we were to rank them, our own different rankings for them. However, I will be supporting this, and I've just taken a third of them, the first 6, and based upon what's included in here under the Wellhead Overlay Ordinance, the fact that it does not change the legislative discretion of the City Council, I listed that as my number 1 priority. Number 2 is that this provides a comprehensive approval process. Number 3, this is supported by a rational basis. Number 4, this still goes back to, I guess, you have this listed here twice. I just picked it up. Comprehensive approval process, so I guess there's 17. Number 5, uses expert staff to administer the approval process. And then number 6, or number 5 technically would be, this is consistent with federal law. So it's based upon looking at this and what I would consider the top 5. I would be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Jones. Council Lady Johnson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I just had a quick question in regards to another colleague. If it is a repair to an existing pipeline, they have to go through the same process. Is that what I heard?
No, ma'am.
Okay, what happens?
That's exempted.
Okay, all repairs are exempted.
Yes.
Okay. Regardless of the size, or if they're going, when does an exemption end? When they add additional pipeline, or what?
I think the language in G covers.
I was trying to find G, but I couldn't on this.
Yeah, let me just go through it. So,
Page, please give me the page on G.
7.
Okay.
And if you look at the bottom red language,
Okay.
it says, any expansion that would enable the increase in the volume of existing crude oil pipelines in the Wellhead Overlay Protection District may be pursued through a special exemption process. And it does not apply to existing crude oil pipelines, including any activities related to the maintenance, repair, or replacement thereof.
Okay. But no expansion at the site.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Let me ask you another question. If the repair is so extensive, do they have to report it or anything?
sometimes the repairs are required by federal
Yeah,
administrators.
right, but in case the
And they do
repair,
report and
Okay.
regularly report all repairs and maintenance of pipe.
okay. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Council
And I
Lady.
will be supporting it, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady, and for your support. Councilman Smiley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Wade, I received an inquiry. I'm gonna just read it verbatim. It indicates that the ordinance will protect the wellhead overlay zone. What if a crude oil pipeline builds around that zone?
If they, build around that zone, I think it would be very difficult considering the scope of the wellhead areas. But if you could snake through it and buy $100,000 properties in my neighborhood to do it, I mean, I guess you could.
That's the only inquiry I have. That's all for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Smiley. Any other council members wish to be recognized? All right, this was moved by Carlisle, seconded by Smiley. Seeing no other members in the queue, assume you're ready to vote on the amended. You're voting on the amendment that you offered, which is this. Show the screen, cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Codet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Well done. All right, Madam Comptroller, call item 2.
Item number 2 is an ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code as adopted by the City of Memphis, August 10th, 2010, and by Shelby County, August 9th, 2010, as amended, to revise and enhance the joint zoning and subdivision regulations as recommended by the Memphis and Shelby County Division of Planning and Development and the Land Use Control Board. This text amendment affects all property within the City of Memphis and unincorporated Shelby County. Up for third and final reading, this ordinance is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. It was held from August 17th.
Can you give me that?
The case number is
What number is
ZTA
it?
21-01, ordinance number 5784.
Thank you, Madam Comptroller. Councilman Canali?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was heard in committee. It did not receive a recommendation, but with that, I will move it to the floor.
For discussion. But moved by Councilman Canali, seconded by Councilman Warren. I see no members in the queue at this point. Sir, you wish to make a statement? May I have your name and address for the record?
Yes, sir. Frankie Dakin, Press Secretary for Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, 1888 Court Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38104.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first say that I'm really just so grateful to be here with you today at what could be a finish line for critical pipeline regulation in Memphis and Shelby County. The ordinance before you today represents many months of community feedback, public vetting, including unanimous passage by the Land Use Control Board, and just last week, passage by the Shelby County Commission with bipartisan support. This ordinance has the buy-in of community stakeholders, and I hope you received the public comments that were submitted today on this ordinance's behalf. But this has the buy-in of community stakeholders, including leadership at Valero and FedEx. This buy-in across varied interests is extremely difficult to achieve, and I applaud this body for driving the conversation to make it happen. I also understand that this is one of a few ordinances in front of you today regarding oil pipeline regulation. I want you all to know that the Office of Mayor Lee Harris is in support of any effort to protect our community's pristine aquifer. And we believe that this ordinance augments those efforts and does not replace it. I would also like to emphasize that this ordinance stands alone in that it places a barrier between new pipelines and schools, parks, places of worship, family recreation centers, and homes throughout Memphis and unincorporated Shelby County. If there were to be an oil spill, this ordinance is the only ordinance before you that specifically seeks to preserve the character of where children play and learn, keep our churches and places of worship from being blighted, and maintain property values for families and their homes by keeping oil pipelines out of their neighborhoods and backyards. And I will say this, there have been multiple studies that have reported on the impact on property values following oil spills, and it is very alarming. I mean, you've seen property values decrease by as much as 40%. We would love to see both the protections for our aquifer and protections for our community pillars move forward today. We believe that this ordinance answers our community's call to have a say in the construction of future oil pipelines in their neighborhoods. And with that, I really do thank you for your time and service and stand ready to address any questions that you may have for our office. And I'm also here with Administrator Whitehead, who I believe has a presentation and can answer more specific questions about the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Administrator Whitehead, do you wish to present?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, this is a joint ordinance, unlike the previous matter. And the county commission, when they approved it, and Ms. Hayes, if you want to advance to maybe the third slide, that gets to the one more. Thank you, Ms. Hayes. The county commission approved on third reading last week their part of the joint ordinance, and they did amend it to strike those terms in red, special use permit process, with the terms special exception process. The reason for that goes back to Councilwoman Johnson's question. If you're a regular nonconformity, if you want to modify or expand, you have to meet the variance test. You have to go to the Board of Adjustment and explain why the rules cannot apply to you. What is extraordinary about your use, and why does it impart upon a hardship or a practical difficulty upon you? We did not want to treat existing pipelines or even existing rights of way for future pipelines through such a rigorous process. And between Mayor Harris's staff, myself, the Southern Environmental Law Center, the Save Our Aquifer, Protect Our Aquifer group, as well as Valero and FedEx, sat down and came up with the special exception process. So if this body is inclined to approve this, I would urge to make that one amendment so our joint ordinance does equal on both sides of Main Street. This goes back to, I think, the inquiry that Councilman Smiley goes to. The wellhead protection overlays will be nebulous, amoeba-like shapes around our wells, but it leaves a lot of areas outside of those islands, if you will. So someone could circumvent those little sections. The purpose of this ordinance would say, no, you too have to go through a process. So then there would be a public review process of those attempts to circumvent the wellhead areas. With that, Mr. Chairman, I am available for any questions.
All right, Counselor, you're recognized.
Josh, what is exactly before us? I have a packet. I don't see the amended language in.
No,
what's on the table?
What's on the table is an unamended version. The county commission last month struck these two terms and replaced them with the special exception. So if it's unamended, we have the special use permit process. If we amend it, we'll match the version across the street. Depending on which route the body wants to go, I will then instruct the body on maybe striking the J word, joint, out of this ordinance, so it can, if it does get approved, but it is not equal to the version across the street, we strike the word joint. It doesn't need to be equal.
And Mr. Chairman, I brought printed copies if it's helpful of the amended ordinance. I can give them to Attorney.
Yeah, I don't think we have it, do we?
I don't think we have. Make sure Counselor Wade gets them. Thank you. So Josh, while they're handing them out, just to make sure I'm clear, we have the ordinance that we've been seeing from the county, and you're now offering two amendments to square it away with what the commission actually approved, 10 yes, 2 abstains.
That is correct, and that would be the version first presented to this body. If you
Okay.
recall, this body, I think on second reading,
Right.
made an amendment. So basically, we would be reversing that amendment to go back to the originally presented language.
All right. Make sure I'm squared away. Where in this handout are the two changes? Because it's the red stuff on page 2, the special exemption process, chapter 9.4, and special exemption process 9.4.
Yes, sir.
Okey doke. Okay. Let's keep going because I don't have an amendment just yet. Let's go through the queue unless somebody wants to bring that up. Councilman Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to bring this amendment up, but I wanted to explain why we're doing it. When we changed it, when we looked at this the last time, we made it a special use process, just like Administrator Whitehead said. And our companies in town, particularly FedEx and Valero, preferred the special exception process because that way someone has to complain before it comes back to the county commission or city council. So this movement back to the original language was better accepted and actually approved by those two companies. So I would recommend that we follow the county commission and go ahead and approve this language. I think it adds to the excellent language, the excellent work that Councilor Wade has done. But what it does do is it protects specific items, where before we've now protected wellheads in the city. This provides protection for churches and schools and community centers and homes throughout the county and the city. So our county commission, evidently their legal team felt that this was defensible and recommended for its passage. So I think, like with any good doctor, you can get two opinions and probably two different prescriptions. With any good lawyer, you can get the same thing. And I think at this point, I would prefer that what we did is really listen to Councilor Wade on last time and not listen to him on this time. So that would just be my recommendation, that we should move forward listening to county attorneys and no harm, no foul. Councilor Wade, thank you. Okay.
Enough said. All right, Councilman Smiley, you're recognized.
Attorney Wade, I have a question. Is there any way that we can amend the previous ordinance to address the potential for a company to come in and do like the attempt to go through the wellhead, go between the wellhead? Is there any way we can amend that ordinance to address that concern or no?
I've tried to use the best of all, but also stay consistent with TDAC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I could do that and stay consistent with TDAC regulations.
Okay. I just wanted to know if there's a way that we could, essentially consolidate all three and address all the concerns while being consistent with all the different laws and regulations we have to follow. But thank you.
Let me just say one thing. I think my view was to try to do one measured step at a time.
Okay.
To the extent that, we found and want to restudy and maybe modify this one to not be as blanket in authority, to make it more defensible, that's something that we could consider. But I don't see how we could be consistent with TDAC regulations and do what they're doing.
I'm actually another question. As it relates to this ordinance, particular ordinance before this body relating to the 1,500-foot setback, you don't believe we have a rational basis to do it, that means it is your opinion if it was challenged that we would be in trouble.
Yeah, I think there's nothing in our record to show that, I mean, I've heard statements from the mayor's representatives that this would affect property values, but I haven't seen any evidence in our record to support that. And I think they are saying that after an oil spill that it could cause, but that is, a significant eventuality that may never occur. And then based on our history in our county, it hadn't occurred in 30 years. So, I mean, I just don't, I think that's a real vulnerability in the ordinance personally.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Wade. Mr. Dakin, I guess my question for you is, you heard the statements by, our legal representative, Attorney Wade. Would you all be able to provide documentation showing how it would have that negative impact that Attorney Wade suggested? Because we need, I guess, a rational basis to make this decision without any documentation before this body to support our decision. It seems that there may be some legal consequences that I'm not sure if this body would be willing to take.
Sure. We're happy to provide any underlying research to you, Councilman Spiley. I will say this, that Attorney Wade is correct. I was talking about the effect on property values in the event of an oil spill. I will say this, that there are hundreds of these significant pipeline incidents across the country that happen every year. And I would imagine that no community expected them to be next. And if you just look at any of the oil spills that have happened across the country and the property values of those affected. I mean, just recently there was a spill, I believe, and I'm sorry, I don't have this in front of me, in Maryland, and it affected 10 miles of properties around the spill. So this 1,500-foot setback, we believe, is really just the bare minimum to protect our neighborhoods from the worst of pipeline incidents. And hopefully we would never need that.
Okay, so you indicated that you would be happy to provide us information. This may be unpopular with my colleagues on this body, but I think we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to protect our drinking water, and I'm not ready to vote on this item as just yet. So, I'm going to go ahead and move in the hopes I get a second. I move that we hold this item in the hopes that we get more information.
Okay, I got a motion by Smiley and a second by who? All right, moved by Smiley, seconded by Ford. We are now in discussion. All right, is there any objection?
Well,
all right, tell you what, I'm going to object to it so that we will go into discussion. Councilman Carlisle, do you have a comment? We'll just, on the whole.
It impacts both. Because it could defer to me. One of the things I'll say really quickly is when it comes to doctors and attorneys' opinions is our attorney is bound to represent us and advocate for our best interests, not only individually, but as the body, as the Memphis City Council, to protect us from making mistakes. Whether you choose to rely on his opinion is your individual choice. It works wildly different. No offense to the county's attorney, but the county's attorney responsibility is to advocate for the county and what's in the best interest of the county administration, not us. That's just a general statement. The other thing that I'll say that's a little more of a general statement has a question that I'm starting to get a little miffed about. I recognize that large corporate employers have weighed in on these ordinances, but I think you guys are playing loose and fast by talking about how you have their support. I asked Ms. Hensley for a statement from both companies of their support, and I haven't received one. Now, I know that they've weighed in and there's language they're willing to live with, but that's a far cry from support. If they wanted to come out and show support, they would have made a formal statement, and I haven't seen that. Do you have one?
I'm sorry, Councilman, do I have
Do you have a formal statement of support for your ordinance from Valero or FedEx Corporation?
Councilman Carlisle, the answer is no, I do not.
Okay, thank you. So this is really where I'm going. I'm not saying that they're not supportive of the language, but I think it's more what they're willing and not willing to live with based on what the body and bodies are gonna do. And so I take issue with throwing that stuff around because I know that they are very upset about it, period. They don't like their name invoked unless they are or not for something, and they're big enough for themselves to make their own comments. And so I really don't appreciate that kind of rhetoric coming into these chambers, both publicly and via email. My only question really is, and then is for Councilor Wade, which is based on your chart, which I agree with Councilman Jones is very, very helpful. It seems to me like these are duplicative on top of each other, and that your wellhead overlay ordinance, as you said earlier, combines the best or I guess the best proposals of the other documents and proposals that have come forward. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, let me rephrase it. I was always told that pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. So I'm an advocate of going in a measured way with what I know I can defend. Now, if this body wants to continue to evaluate additional options, I think we should do so. But, you know, I'm a fan of doing one small step at a time until we're comfortable.
Mr. Chairman, I will support my colleagues if they wish to hold it, and I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilman Carlisle. Council Lady Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I have questions for clarity. Let me first say, as a former assessor, there's many factors that will affect the value, and truly an oil leak will. But a major oil leak is going to go a lot farther than 1,500 feet, just like you said, 10 miles. So I don't think a 1,500 span is even enough if you really want to try to stop something like that from occurring. It's going to be a lot more significant than a 1,500 feet range. Now, what Attorney Wade ordinance we just passed a few minutes ago covered all of the city of Memphis. Am I correct?
In all material respects, there are gaps, as Administrator Whitehead said, but most of the major areas, these are very, very large.
Yeah, outside the zone 1 and 2 that you
Yes,
mentioned, outside of
yes.
that, okay, mainly that. So the ordinance that you're proposing basically is picking up outside of Memphis, the Shelby County area, correct?
I'm
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Hopefully you won't have to mute me. It is a joint ordinance, so it does affect, yes, the inside the city limits of Memphis as well as unincorporated Shelby County.
I got you, but it still seems like if this body has looked at the first ordinance and have agreed to it, then the next area that we may need to take care of is outside the Shelby County area, unincorporated. And at the same time, Mr. Whitehead made the comment, remove joint from the amendment. And if that be the case, why do we even need to vote on it? This is back across the street on Shelby County side.
Let me correct one thing.
Okay.
If you decide not to adopt this ordinance, it will apply only in unincorporated Shelby County automatically.
That's what I'm saying, that's fine, but that doesn't need to be a discussion or decision we have to make here in the city of Memphis. Am I understanding correctly?
No, you're correct. You're only considering whether you want it to apply also here.
Yeah, so if you remove joint, I guess can't see the need for two ordinances, something that will actually just confuse the average, I guess it won't be average people laying pipelines, but it would just get to be confusing for these developers if they have to answer to two governments in this situation.
You have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add that really what this does is provide an opportunity for public input if an oil pipeline was to come to your neighborhood and through your backyard. I have not seen the oil well map that you've referenced, but this applies to 1,500 foot to all neighborhoods, churches, schools, and if there's anything I've learned over the past year is that folks are really clamoring for more public input on these sort of oil pipelines. And I know Councilman Carlisle asked about written letters of support from the companies, and I don't have those with me. But I have seen hundreds of written letters of support from residents who are really concerned about these pipelines going through their backyards.
Please, you're recognized.
Let me ask this back to, Attorney Wade. Is it not true in the ordinance previous approved that if anyone wants to, construct a pipeline, they have to get a permit and go through the same process, which citizens would then have an opportunity to speak?
Absolutely. It'd go through 2 public hearings.
So again, it seems like duplication, and that's a problem we have a lot here. We're duplicating so many services, and we really just need to try to keep it clear for the person dealing with it. That's my concern that I'm seeing right now.
Let's speak towards that.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Logan, you're recognized.
I would like for clarity if Josh could come back and restate what he said previously about the, you confirmed that there was parts missing in the previous ordinance, that something would suffice or fix that. Could you go over that again?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, Josh Whitehead again. The Wellhead Protection Overlay Ordinance that we just addressed with agenda item number 3 would require a special use permit for all new pipelines within those pockets of the city of Memphis. I would, if I had to guess the percentage of the city of Memphis that are in those wellhead zones, those pockets, I would say about 25%. So this ordinance would both, A, cover the area in unincorporated Shelby County, but also B, those areas inside the city of Memphis outside of those wellhead pockets.
Okay. Okay. So that, you said 25%. So 75% is not covered, that this covers.
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's a large portion that's not covered. If,
Wellheads cover 75%.
Okay, okay, 25%
remains uncovered.
is that correct?
Sorry for the
No, please clarify.
misunderstanding. 25% of the city of Memphis are in the wellhead zones, about. So 75% are not.
Okay, see, that makes a big difference. So thank you for clarifying. We do need to have those covered, in my opinion. And I don't think you can have too much coverage to cover your water, and especially if it's around churches and these specific areas. I don't see where that would be a problem to have extra coverage or protection to make certain. And even if it is unincorporated, because I have some, like one side of the street in my district is unincorporated, the other side is city of Memphis. So there may be a number of areas that are like that on the lying areas that we need to consider. So thank you for that clarity.
Thank you, Council Lady Logan. Councilman Jones?
Just when I thought my mind was made up.
That's why we're here.
My first question, and this is for Mr. Wade, is it your opinion that the joint ordinance is inconsistent with TDEC? Okay. That was a yes for those.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Ms. Logan just asked me, what does it mean? I think that, you're saying that you haven't reviewed it to the standpoint based upon what was previously approved by us, to basically say that it goes through the same guidelines or touches the same basis that ours does. Am I interpreting that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think we've been presented with maps by MLGW about what's covered in private sessions for homeland security reasons. I cannot validate 25% or another number. I think Mr. Whitehead is estimating, so I really don't know what that number is.
Right. Okay. But still, from an estimation standpoint, I would, just as I rely upon you for the legal standpoint when it comes to land uses, and I would rely upon his professional advice to that. One other issue that I have is, as far as more public opinion, do we not have any comments of
public input based upon this issue from the public? Is that, when are we gonna address that?
We received 67 comments in favor of the ordinance and 0 comments in opposition. The comments have been included in records of this meeting.
Okay, but are they pretty much form letters? Are there any that we could, okay.
It's the same letter.
Gotcha, okay. And then my last question is, looking at this partially under the setback ordinance, does that change the legislative discretion of the Memphis City Council if we adopt that one?
As I gave you an example, if Valero wanted to construct a new pipeline within their existing right-of-way, they would require some special exception from somebody. And if it came to you and you says, we think it's appropriate, yes, we are in favor of it, but it goes across the street and the county commission says, no, we are not in favor of it, it would kill it. So your discretion is limited in every joint ordinance because you are having to share your approval authority with the county commission. And in the example I gave you, the project would be inside the city limits, which is within your exclusive domain and not the county commission or the county mayor.
Okay. Well, I'm willing to go with what the will of the body is, but I think that to address these uncertainties, where the new uncertainties, I think that hold is warranted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think our discussion has brought out the sort of compatibility of these two ordinances. And I am firmly in favor of passage of this ordinance from the county commission, with us knowing that we may have that problem where we want to allow it and they don't, and have it as a joint thing. That way we've got a little check and balance. If they want to pass one, we can stop it if we don't think it should go to. It works in both directions. But I hear enough from my fellow commissioners that I'm going to vote in favor of the hold, because I think there's more information that people need. I've been in this for a long time. I've been deep in this. So in my mind, I sort of know where I think we should go, and I think we should back our county commissioners. I don't think we're backing our attorney. I think that we should back the county commissioners on this because I think it's good law and it provides an additional protection of our communities and our churches and other things. But I need all of you to come to that conclusion too. And I would like to have you have the time to do that if that's what you need. So I'm going to vote in favor of a hold. And I would like all of you to talk to Mr. Whitehead and to talk to county commissioners and talk to any other experts you want to see if there are other alternatives to this. But I think it adds to Councilman Wade's his ordinance that we've just passed. So we've done good work tonight. I'd like us to hold this, and I would also, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, like to put my ordinance on hold and table it indefinitely until we can get through this one process, if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
All right, so, once we clear this, I'll call 26 and we'll call the hold on that. No sweat there. Guys, I think the will of the body is pretty clear. Council Lady Logan, do you have one last thing to add, or do you just want to go ahead and go to a vote? Go ahead and go to the vote. Councilman Carlisle, we're kind of done, aren't we?
Well, I just want to make sure that the mayor's the motion. Do we want to hold this? Okay. I would just say one last thing on it is, to be very clear, because Councilman Jones brought this up, and just to be abundantly clear, we are giving up our authority, and I appreciate a lot of letters of support that have come in, and I'm even from people in the business community that are not major corporations, and I specifically will say, have you read these ordinances? And the answer is categorically no. And it's our responsibility to get into the details. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't like to look into the details. And I'm going to probably consistently stay with the advice of counsel. I would be a fool not to. And so I'm going to be very clear that unless something drastically changes, I'm going to be very hesitant, if not adamantly opposed to giving up our authority. And so I just want to put that on the record. With that, I yield the floor and have to go to a vote.
Thank you, Councilman Carlisle. I'll join you in not wishing to cede an ounce of our authority. If we need to strengthen the item 3 that we just passed, I'm all in favor of strengthening that. We want to revisit that. Council Lady Logan, why don't you close us out?
I want to make sure that I'm understanding when you say give up our authority. The one we just passed, it was in reference to the city of Memphis. The one we're discussing now was in reference to unincorporated Shelby County, and if we vote on number 2, we give up our authority for the city of Memphis and unincorporated.
No, just the city.
Just the city.
Just the city?
Because we have
Well, right. But I'm saying we give up our city. So I think Mr. Whitehead mentioned something about taking out a word that would why not consider that? Or is that what we're going to consider and then come back? Because if we take that out, then we keep our authority, but yet support the second proposal as well. Or is that what we're going to look at in between the whole?
That's the reason why we're holding this
Okay.
one. That's
All right.
what we're going to dig deep into. Okay?
Thank you for the clarity.
So just to be clear, before I go to Cheyenne, we are voting on a hold for 2 weeks on item 2. We passed 3. So this is the joint county. All right, Council Lady Johnson, you're recognized. Bring your mic up, please.
Back to Councilwoman Logan's comment. So if the permit is for an unincorporated area, only the county would vote on it, and the city wouldn't have any comment about it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
On the joint ordinance, I'm not sure about that.
Well, let me clarify my answer. So the governing body is the key difference. The governing body in that scenario would be the county commission, period. The city council would not be opining on that particular special use permit. And conversely, the county commission would not have any opinions or formal opinions or vote on a city-only special use permit. But the staff is the same and the planning commission is the same. That's the genius of the 1955 decision to formalize a single staff and a single planning commission for the two bodies was exactly part of the discussions happening right now.
That's not what I understood earlier.
Can you clarify that?
I didn't understand that earlier either.
Okay.
So if it's a pipeline inside the city under the Wellhead Protection Ordinance, not the Wellhead, the Setback Ordinance, and it's only in the city, you're saying the county commission don't have any voice in it?
Correct.
And it's a joint ordinance that gives.
So, Mr. Chairman, let me clarify something for apparently all parties.
Time. Josh, hold time. We have a hold on the floor. There's obviously a little bit of confusion just getting ginned up. So why don't we just, let's go forward with the hold. Got a little bit to work out. What you got?
Can I address my motion to hold?
You address your motion to hold? Okay, please.
All right, so Attorney Wade, could you speak specifically in terms of the current ordinances before us? Is there a way that we can amend this to make it better?
Okay, let's talk about that.
Go ahead.
You are not bound to be a puppet to what the county commission did. You can take this ordinance and change it however the hell you want, okay? Especially in light of what Mr. Whitehead is saying, that they ain't got no voice in what happens over here. We could have different, this 1,500 business is just pulled out of thin air. You can change it to 500. You can change it to 250. You can do a lot of things. You can make it be a special use permit. You can do a lot of things.
Can we do that?
Yeah, you can do that. But I think you got to have, I've asked for, where does 1,500 come from? I don't know where it came from. I'll tell you one thing I do know, that we do have setbacks for liquor stores, and it's 250 or 300. I'm not sure which one is correct. It's not 1,500. When you add residential to the 1,500, you block out everything. Nothing can happen. So let's go ahead and put 1,500 in the liquor store ordinance, and then we wouldn't have no liquor stores. Let's put let's just go crazy. We can just pull it out the air. Let's just go crazy.
We're adding a special use
Because
permit.
they won't let you. Listen, if y'all are concerned about covering extra areas, you can have your own setback. And you can control it, you can vote on it, you can just determine it. This thing where they lob this stuff from across the street for you to deal, telling you how they want to deal with what's in the city, I think is offensive to me, personally. I mean, it's offensive to me. You can control your own destiny. You don't have to listen to them.
Attorney Wade, real quick, if we drop the joint and add a requirement of special use permit, would you be inclined to opine that it's in the best interest of the body to do something like that, or we need to hold this and discuss it at a later date?
Let me consider it. I mean, I think the hold is appropriate.
Hold.
Because there are a lot of things that, what I'm hearing, that this body wants. If you want to flex your muscles, let's flex your muscles. Let's not flex their muscles for them, okay? That's my opinion.
Well, because remember, guys, we can strengthen item 3 that we just passed. We can always strengthen that later, take 2 off the equation if it gets too complicated. But, all right, Councilor Logan, you wish to be recognized again. All right.
Just to make certain that we're all on the same page in terms of this whole and what we're going to try to accomplish in the meantime. Because it's not about flexing muscles. To me, I want to make sure that we are protected, whether we're in the city or whether the outlying areas that are unincorporated that bunt up to our districts. So while we're in this hole and what we're trying to figure out, I want to make sure that we know that what we're doing in number 1, if we're going to strengthen it, will cover or will speak to the unincorporated areas or just the city. And if it's just the city, then we need to work with our counterparts across the street to make sure that all of Memphis is covered, or do we not? So these are some of the things that I would like to know when we come back to make sure that the city of Memphis is covered in those, in that 75% everywhere. So not just about flexing the muscles, but let's protect our city. That's what I'm looking for.
All right, thank Councilor Logan. All right, we've got a hold moved by Smiley, seconded by Ford. And I see nobody else in the queue. Assume you're ready to vote. This is special item 1. A yes vote holds this 2 weeks to give counselors time to figure it out, and also us time to do a little more homework. A no vote, we go right back to the main motion. Please prepare the screen and cast your votes.
Councilmembers, please cast your votes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Smiley, yes. Harrigan, yes. Norman, yes. Chairman Kodak, yes.
Thank you. That item's held 2 weeks. All right, call item 26, or what? Call item 26, and we're just going to hold it without objection, but just go ahead.
If I could. What I'd like to do is, we've had this on our agenda for a long time. I want to table this instead of hold it, if that's okay, because we've got some other things that we may need to add to it, so we'll just hold this. And I think it's really important that we, I don't know, I heard a lot of language tonight about, how the county commission is throwing this down our throat. I mean, I sort of thought we were working together. So I think that we need to realize that we have our own authority, but we also have the reasons, we have many reasons that we want to be colleagues with our county commissions. We're all serving pretty much the same people. At least they're serving all of our citizens. Thank you.
I emphatically agree that we ought to work with everybody, but they don't concede their authority. We don't concede ours. We all get along famously. Call the case so we can table it, please.
Item number
26.
26 is a substitute ordinance to amend the City of Memphis Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16, Health and Sanitation, to protect public health and the environment, preserve the Memphis Sand Aquifer, and promote environmental justice. Up for third and final reading, all council districts. Ordinance number 5794 is sponsored by Councilman Warren. It was held from August 17th.
Thank you. Councilman Warren, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to table this motion.
All right, it's been moved to table by Councilman Warren, seconded by Councilman Carlisle. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote. We'll call this special item 2, and that is to table item 26. Spread the screen. Everybody good? I got Warren and Carlisle. Yeah. Cast your votes to table, please. No vote obviously does not. That was the whole motion we just had.
Canali, yes.
I'm looking at
Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Kovac, yes.
Thank you. That item is tabled until you move to bring it off the table. Okay, colleagues, when I read items 43 through 45 as our add-ons, I had not been told about item 46. So without objection, I'm going to suspend the rules. This is a request, suspend the rules for the request of hearing item 46, which is a request for an exemption of sale of alcohol moratorium at 644 Madison Avenue. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the rules are suspended. This is item 46, and I'll read it in. It's a resolution requesting an exemption to the sale of alcohol moratorium at 644 Madison Avenue, District 6, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Councilman Canali, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item has not been heard in committee. It was held once. We sent it downstairs without recommendation and without presentation. With that, I'll move it to the floor.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Canali. Need a second? Been seconded by Councilman Jones. Do we need to get a presentation? Does anybody want a presentation? Yeah. We would like a presentation. Administrator Whitehead, could we get a presentation on this, or do we want to bring up the applicant also?
This is not a land use matter. This is an alcohol commission matter.
Well, that's a good point. All right. Our applicant is present. Tell you what, let's hear from the applicant. Go ahead and get her on the record, and then I'll come to you. While they're handing it out, Ms. Baser, could I go ahead and get your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brenda Salamito Baser, Salamito Land Planning, 1779 Kirby Parkway, Memphis.
All right, thank you very much. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The documentation that you have before you is a request for a waiver from the existing City Council moratorium on liquor licenses. And that went into effect, I believe, this past summer. The moratorium went into effect. The moratorium, and Attorney Wade can probably elaborate a little bit more, but it was to look at and refine what is a clerical error, basically, that was in the ordinances for the issuances of liquor licenses. At the June City Council meeting, I believe it was discussed and determined that if an applicant met the criteria for a liquor license from the 1985 ordinance, that they were able to seek a waiver from this particular moratorium. So we've been working with the city attorney's office and working with Councilman Ford Sr. and Attorney Wade in providing this documentation for you that proves that we do meet the criteria established in the 1985 ordinance, specifically for the distance regulations. So the packet that you have there is where the property is located at 644 Madison, located in the Edge District. The purpose of this is to issue a liquor license for a wine store, and it is there located on the north side of Madison. There is a survey, which you can see is the larger documentation here, that shows the proximity to two properties that we sought clarification and support from. So we have identified with a black star where the sales will be on this survey. Then there's a property named the Edge Triangle, which is a green space. And we've received a support letter from Memphis Green Space stating they support our application for this wine store operation. You will also see that there is a community outreach and organization called the River Deep Church. They don't necessarily meet the definition of a church by being tax exempt. However, we have also received their consent to agree and support the application for this waiver, as well as us being able to file with the city and the state to pursue the license. So what we're asking of you today is to grant approval of our request for the waiver so that we may file and go through the normal process, with it to be fully reviewed by the Alcohol Beverage Commissions. So the owner applicant is here, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer those for you today.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Baser. I see Council Lady Johnson is in the queue. Councilman Ford, do you want to be recognized last? Councilor Wade wants to speak first.
Can I expedite this?
Please.
There are two issues. One, church that is paying taxes and not exempt from taxes is an exception under the ordinance. A lot of times, small churches buy properties and do not pursue the exemption process to have their property exempt, and it is pretty automatic. I wanted to make sure, we have this moratorium for a reason, and for us to just not give due consideration to small churches that may not have done their paperwork would have been an injustice, in my opinion. So I suggested that they get a consent from the church and from the park, which they did. Having done that, I think it is appropriate for you to approve the waiver to the moratorium. It doesn't mean they'll get their license. It means they have to go through the process. But I think as a matter of precedent, we should make sure that we try to protect churches and parks where necessary. And we've done that, and they've done exactly what we asked them to do.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Wade. Council Lady Johnson, you're recognized.
My comments are not in opposition whatsoever. More so, it goes back to Mr. Whitehead over there. Josh, please. They're here because of the moratorium we set on it. With each moratorium, we say that you're going to do a study. When are we going to receive the study so we can end these moratoriums?
Mr. Chairman,
This is not his issue.
I think, yeah, this is alcohol, so it's not really.
What we're gonna do.
Got it. We're just used to calling on you, Josh. I mean, come on, man.
I mean,
I just let him off the hook. We're gonna codify the language in the ordinance to make it official. It is not official. What was amended was the unoffense in official code. You have an ordinance that's been pending for a couple of months that will incorporate this change, and then we won't have a moratorium anymore. So it's already in process, and it will be brought to you.
okay. I mean, I'm just
But I'm
concerned
just one
because,
little paper hanging lawyer. I can only do one thing.
not you. Okay, so I guess my concern is the moratorium. You said we're gonna resolve this. So hopefully we get to all the other moratoriums that are sitting out there. We need these studies because it's becoming a hardship to these individuals having to come through this process just to open up businesses or move from one location to the next. So I surely would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Councilman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sort of slipped my mind while we were doing this moratorium, so I'm glad it was reintroduced as to why. But I served on the Alcohol Commission for 10 years prior to any public service, and this was always an issue. The fact that when we look at TCA, part of the definition of a church for alcohol provisions is that it has to be tax exempt. And so there was, it didn't happen often, but in following what was Tennessee statute, that's what we did. But I still would offer, though, when it comes to moratoriums, and I appreciate the fact that we have built into the ones that we've put in place, an opportunity for an applicant to come before council and to have it approved or disapproved or whatever the case may be. So I just appreciate our going through this process for this, and just for most of our familiarity with this area, I see that this would complement, and I would recommend approval of this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilman Jones. It was moved by Canale, seconded by Jones. I see no members in the queue. I assume you're ready to vote on item number 46. Please cast your votes.
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to our consent agenda, Andy Shepard. Colleagues, this is Andy's last meeting. Andy's a part of the Information Technology Division, as you know. Let's show our appreciation. I hope my timing is, we kind of got the tougher parts out of the way. We all know Andy. He's a member of our team, even though he's Information Technology Division throughout COVID. Andy was at the office every day, going overtime, trying to make sure that the digital divide and the in-person meetings are how we all got it together. It happened because of you, sir. It is not easy. It was, as a matter of fact, incredibly hard, but your dedication to making it happen these last 18 months, we cannot possibly thank you enough. Thank you for your service and Godspeed. Andy's last day. This is Andy's last meeting.
Oh, no.
See, you get up and leave. See?
Man, thanks to you go, my friend.
Okay, all right. Remembering, Madam Comptroller, that item 1 is now part of the consent agenda. Please give us the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Starting with item 1, which is a resolution approving an honorary street name change of East Range Road between Riverdale Road and Ross Road for Dr. T.L. This resolution is sponsored by Councilman Smiley, and there is a request for same-night minutes. Item number 4 on our consent agenda is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Building Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of ICC International Building Code and local amendments, including certain appendices in the ICC Building Code to replace an outdated building code and setting applicable fees for permits and inspections. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5799 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 5 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County existing building code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the ICC International existing building code and local amendments. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5800 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 6 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Residential Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the ICC International Residential Code and local amendments. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5801 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 7 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Building Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the International Energy Conservation Code and local amendments. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5802 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 8 is a joint ordinance amending the Joint Electrical Code of Memphis and Shelby County so as to adopt the 2020 edition of the National Electrical Code with local amendments and setting applicable fees for permits and inspections. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5803 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 9 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Plumbing Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the ICC International Plumbing Code and local amendments to replace an outdated plumbing code and setting applicable fees for permits and inspections. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5804 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 10 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Mechanical Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the ICC International Mechanical Code and local amendments to replace an outdated mechanical code and setting applicable fees for permits and inspections. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5805 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 11 is a joint ordinance amending the Memphis and Shelby County Fuel Gas Code so as to adopt the 2021 edition of the ICC International Fuel Gas Code and local amendments to replace an earlier outdated fuel gas code and setting applicable fees for permits and inspections. Up for first reading, ordinance number 5806 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. Item number 12 is an ordinance approving a zoning text amendment initiated by the zoning administrator of the Memphis and Shelby County Division of Planning and Development. Up for first reading, all council districts, ordinance number 5796 is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. The case number is ZTA 21-02, ordinance number 5796. Item number 13 is an ordinance amending ordinance number 5267 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Memphis, Tennessee, adopted on August 10th, 2010 as amended, known as the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, so as to make certain changes in the use districts provided in said ordinance. Up for first reading, this ordinance is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. The case number is Z21-11, ordinance number 5797. Item number 14 is an ordinance amending ordinance number 5267 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Memphis, Tennessee, adopted on August 10th, 2010 as amended, known as the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, so as to make certain changes in the use districts provided in the said ordinance. Up for first reading, this ordinance is sponsored by the Division of Planning and Development. The case number is 21-12, ordinance number 5798. And we will move on to item number 15, which is a notation from the Land Use Control Board that the following case was heard and recommendation made requesting a date of public hearing for A, case number PD 21-30, Ansdale Mansion Plan Development. Item number 16 from our Engineering Division, a resolution to accept final plat and public improvements for Butler and Front Subdivision S-1804 and release the performance bond in the amount of $44,000. The related contract number is CR-5249. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our consent agenda items.
Thank you very much. Moved by Vice Chair Lady Swearingen, seconded by Jones. Seeing no members of the queue, I assume you're ready to vote for the consent agenda. Please prepare the screen.
Moved by Swearingen, seconded by Jones. Thank you.
Cast your votes.
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Corbett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Please call our fiscal consent agenda.
That would take us to item number 17, a resolution accepting grant funds of $40,000 from Shelby County Commission via Local Initiatives Support Corporation to support Ruth Tate and Orange Mound Senior Center, Council Districts 4 and 6, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by Park Services. Request for same night minutes. Item number 18 is a resolution to accept and appropriate state grant funds in the amount of $100,000 from the State of Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Programs. This award will be used for internet crimes against children, overtime, supplies, and equipment. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Police Services. There's a request for same night minutes. And item number 19 is a resolution to accept, allocate, and appropriate grant funding in the amount of $103,500 from the Mid-South Emergency Planning Coalition. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services, all council districts and super districts, and there's a request for same night minutes. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our fiscal consent agenda items.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Council Lady Robinson, seconded by Councilman Carlisle. See no members in the queue. I assume you're ready to vote on fiscal consent agenda. Please cast your votes.
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Corbett, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Please call item 43.
Item number 43 is a resolution to transfer an allocation and appropriate funds in the amount of $192,630 for healthcare navigator renovations. CIP project number SS20104. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services. There's a request for same night minutes.
Thank you very much, Councilman Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the committee met and recommended approval, and I so move.
Could you do so? There we go. Been moved by Warren, seconded by Carlisle. Seeing no members of the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 43. Please prepare the screen. Cast your votes.
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Corbett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Please call item 44.
Item number 44 is a resolution to transfer and/or appropriate funds in the amount of $1,800,000 for Avery renovations, CIP project number FS18102, all council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services. There is a request for same night minutes.
Thank you very much. Councilman Warren?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Been moved by Councilman Warren, seconded by Councilman Canale. See no members of the queue. I assume you're ready to vote on item 44. Please press the screen, cast your votes.
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Call item 45.
Item number 45, resolution to allocate $250,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act to fund startup costs for ShotRx Memphis vaccination initiatives within the city of Memphis. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Councilwoman Swearingen. There's a request for same night minutes.
Thank you very much, Councilman Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee met, recommends approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councilman Morgan, second by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members of, Council Lady Johnson, you are in the queue. Hold the screen, please.
Who's trying to vote?
I was trying to vote. I'm sorry.
Who's trying to vote?
You're trying to vote. Okay. Seeing nobody else in the queue, assume you're ready to vote. Cast your votes on item 45.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes. What am I missing?
Well, we thought we had, the resolutions being passed out and council members thought they had a moment because Councilwoman Johnson was in the queue. So I believe council members just wanted a moment to read it. I've had a chance to read it.
Yes.
As far as I can tell, the language is in order, and the way that it is being expressed is a $250,000 grant from the council initiatives of ARPA to ShotRx Memphis, which was the nonprofit arm of ShotRx. That's the best summary I have of the language as I read it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Morgan. Any other council members wish to be recognized? Councilman Jones, you're recognized.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Councilman Jones is a co-sponsor. Council Lady Easter Thomas.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well.
Council Lady Easter Thomas is added as co-sponsor. Council Lady Logan.
The same, I'd like to be added as well.
Council Lady Logan is now co-sponsor. Councilman Warren.
Co-sponsor, please.
Councilman Warren is co-sponsor. Council Lady Robinson.
Co-sponsor, please.
Council Lady Robinson is co-sponsor. I see no other members in the queue. Are there any questions or comments? Please include Councilman Ford Sr. as a co-sponsor. Councilman Smiley is a co-sponsor. Council Lady Johnson is a co-sponsor. Any other players I'm missing? We work together. Memphis wins. Okay. Seeing no other members in the queue, I assume you're now ready to vote for item 45. Madam Comptroller, thank you. Cast your votes. Cast your votes, please. Did you cast your vote, Smiley?
Canale, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Let's go to our MLG&W fiscal consent agenda, please.
A resolution awarding contract number 12266, WECO electric meter testing application to Radian Research Inc. in the funded amount of $405,985.82. Item number 21 is a resolution approving change number 1 to contract number 12154, surveying services with OLAR Surveying Company, LLC, in the funded amount of $145,446. Item number 22 is a resolution approving change number 3 to contract number 12183, Synergy Gas and Modeling Software Renewal with DNVGL Noble Denton LLC in the funded amount of $6,913.63. Item number 23 is a resolution approving change number 1 to contract number 12103, Workers' Compensation Stop-Loss Brokering with Willis of Tennessee Incorporated in the funded amount of $324,535. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our MLGW fiscal consent items.
Thank you very much. Moved by Council Lady Robinson, second by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on MLGW fiscal consent. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Warren, yes. Vice Chairwoman Swearingen, yes. And Chairman Colette, yes.
Thank you very much.
Carlisle, yes. Thank you.
Young Carlisle is a yes. That item passes. Call item 24, please.
Regular agenda, the appointment to the Pension Board of Administration, Cleo Griffin, and a reappointment to Memphis and Shelby County Airport Authority, Gregory Fletcher.
All right, Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met, recommends approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councilman Carlisle, seconded by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 24. Please prepare the screen. And cast your votes. The train's on the tracks.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colette, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Please call item 27.
Item number 27 is a resolution to appropriate FY 22 CIP funds in the amount of $4,500,000 for Midtown Area Connector BRT project number GA03028 for the Memphis Area Transit Authority, all council districts. This resolution is sponsored by META.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councilman Jones, second by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members in the queue on item 27, I assume you're ready to vote. Please prepare the screen, cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colette, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 28.
Item number 28 is a resolution to appropriate SSE in the amount of Item number 28 is a resolution to appropriate FY 22 CIP funds in the amount of $1 million for Transit Vision Project number GA0302 for the Memphis Area Transit Authority, all council districts. This resolution is sponsored by META.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Committee recommends approval of this item, and I so move.
Digitally, please.
Thank you.
Been moved by Councilman Jones, second by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members in the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 28. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Easter Thomas, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colette, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 29.
Item number 29 is a resolution to appropriate SSE in the amount of $139,244 in FS02011 replace Fire Station 43 for dehumidifiers. District 3 and 7, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Thank you very much. Councilman Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the committee met, recommended approval, and so I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councilman Warren, second by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members of the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 29. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Please.
She's waving. How are you doing?
Oh, Patrice
Waving, yes.
Hi, Council Lady Robinson. I believe she's a yes on that one.
I normally look around. I apologize.
That item passes. Please call item 30.
Item number 30 is a resolution transferring an allocation of contract construction in the amount of $115,000 in FS02008, Fire Station 11 renovations to A&E in FS02008, Fire Station 11 renovations and appropriating. District 5, Super District 9. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Dr. Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Been moved by Councilman Warren, second by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 30. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Please call item 31.
Item number 31 is a resolution to accept, allocate, and appropriate funding in the amount of $236,500 from Shelby County 911 Emergency Communications Districts for Healthcare Navigator renovations. CIP project number FS20104. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Thank you very much. Councilman Warren.
Yes, our committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Been moved by Councilman Warren, second by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 31. Please prepare the screen. And cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 32.
Item number 32 is a resolution to accept, allocate, and appropriate funding in the amount of $314,000 from the Memphis Fire Department Foundation for Healthcare Navigator renovations. CIP project number FS20104 FY22. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Thank you very much. Councilman Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Been moved by Councilman Warren, seconded by Council Lady Robinson. Seeing no members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 32. Please press the screen and cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 33.
Item number 33 is a resolution transferring an allocation in the amount of $35,000 from FS22100 FY22 Fire Station Improvement Cover to FS22101 Opticom Infrared System and appropriate funds. All council districts. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Councilman Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Been moved by Councilman Warren, seconded by Vice Chair Lady Swearingen. Seeing no members in the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 33. Please press the screen and cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Call item 34.
Item number 34 is a resolution requesting approval of the sale of city-owned parcels located at Zero Auction and 472 North Third, District 6, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by General Services.
Before I recognize Councilman Smiley, St. Jude is the purchaser and asked for this to be same night minutes. So if without opposition, add that. Seeing none, Chairman Smiley, go ahead and give me a motion to do backwards.
The committee may recommend approval, and I so move.
And friendly amendment, same night minutes, seeing no objection. All right, been moved by Smiley, seconded by Robinson. Seeing no members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 34 with same night minutes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 35.
Item number 35 is a resolution requesting the approval sale to transfer 10 city-owned parcels to the Shelby County Board of Education, District 6, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by General Services.
Thank you, Councilman Smiley.
Mr. Chair, the committee may recommend approval, and I so move.
And moved by Councilman Smiley, seconded by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 35. Cast your votes.
Smiley. Thank you. Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 36.
Item number 36 is a resolution to allocate and appropriate funds in the amount of $600,000 for tennis major maintenance, project number PK 03004 FY22, Districts 7 and 4, Super Districts 8 and 9. This resolution is sponsored by the Division of Parks and Neighborhoods.
Thank you, Council Lady Logan. All right, could you do so electronically? Been moved by Council Lady Logan, second by Councilman Carlisle. Seeing the members of the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 36. Please cast your votes. We're almost done.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 37.
Item number 37 is a resolution to appropriate funds in the amount of $500,000 for repair and repaving of the cart path at Audubon Golf Course, CIP project number PK 06017, District 5, Super District 9. This resolution is sponsored by the Division of Parks and Neighborhoods.
Thank you very much, Council Lady Logan.
Yes, Chairman, the committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Electronically, please. Thank you.
Been moved by Council Lady Logan, second by Councilman Carlisle. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 37. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Colvett, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call item 38.
Item number 38 is a resolution to allocate and appropriate funds in the amount of $200,000 for Litcherman Nature Center major maintenance, CIP project number PK 08037, District 2, Super District 9. This resolution is sponsored by the Division of Parks and Neighborhoods.
Thank you, Council Lady Logan.
Thank you, Chair. The committee met, recommend approval, and I so move.
It's been moved by Council Lady Logan, second by Vice Chair Lady Swearingen. Seeing no members in the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 38. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Call 39.
Item number 39 is a resolution to appropriate funds in the amount of $250,000 for improvements and to address major maintenance issues at the Memphis Zoo. CIP project number PK09002, District 5, Super District 9. This resolution is sponsored by the Division of Parks and Neighborhoods.
Thank you very much, Council Lady Logan.
The committee met, recommend approval, and I so move.
Warren.
Been moved.
It's been moved by, there we go.
Okay, we cleared it.
Been moved by Council Lady Logan, second by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 39. Please cast your votes. Jumping the gun, Jeff.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Item passes. Thank you. Call item 40.
Item number 40 is a resolution to appropriate funds for the City of Memphis Division of Police Services, CIP project number PD 02013, FY18 Police Academy renovation, totaling $1,074,200. District 7, Super District 8. This resolution is sponsored by Fire Services.
Thank you very much, Councilman Warren.
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee met, recommend approval. I so move.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councilman Warren, seconded by Councilman Smiley. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on item 40. Please cast your votes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Call item 41.
Item number 41 is a resolution to transfer and appropriate construction funds in the amount of $2 million to perform various uncalled drainage repairs citywide, CIP project number ST02009, all council districts. This resolution is sponsored by the Public Works Division.
Thank you very much, Councilman Smiley.
The Honorable Chairman Covet, the committee met, recommended approval, and I so move.
Been moved by Smiley, seconded by Council Lady Johnson. Seeing no members in the queue, assume you're ready to vote on item 41. Cast your votes. Same 9 minutes.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. Vice Chair Lady Swearingen, do you have our same night minutes?
19, 34, 43, 44, and 45, and I so move.
And to repeat back, I apologize, I didn't hit her mic. It's 1, 17, 18, 19, 34, 43, 44, and 45.
Correct.
All right, I've got a motion by Vice Chair Lady Swearingen, second by Councilman Warren. Seeing no members in the queue, I assume you're ready to vote on same night minutes. Please prepare the screen. And cast your votes. Smiley? Alex, who seconded that motion? I fired it off too fast. Warren. Thank you.
Canali, yes. Carlisle, yes. Ford, yes. Johnson, yes. Jones, yes. Logan, yes. Morgan, yes. Robinson, yes. Smiley, yes. Swearingen, yes. Warren, yes. Chairman Covet, yes.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the end of our regularly scheduled program and business. Now we have a letter to the council, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Vice Chair Lady, you're recognized.
I think this evening you are taking Councilman Carlisle's thunder. This letter is from Joe Kent. Because I trusted Chairman Covet, I did not even read the meeting notice to the last meeting. I just got Mama to drop me off, thinking that Mr. Chairman wanted to hear from the public, like he said. And then the meeting was closed. I told Mama, and she picked me up. Oh, I trust Mr. Chairman will read my previous submitted public comment with the item on the DMA appointment of Elliot Embry. That evening, as Mama brought me back, she served me a bowl of peach cobbler for dessert.
Outstanding.
She said, did Mr. Chairman read the public comment? I said, no, ma'am. That doesn't add up, Mama, nor does meeting closed. I said, Mama, it appears we got spooners here in town that beat up the taxpayers and their abatements so they can invest their inheritance in commercial real estate. And then the same spoolers turn around and bully, using regulatory authorities, a full tax-paying pet store business out of town. She said, that ain't right. So why are the meetings closed? Mama Society is open. I don't know. Don't think anybody knows. Mama just walked off and nodded her head in disgust. This concludes the comments for the evening, Mr. Chair.
You sound like a good bedtime storyteller.
You read Goodnight Moon. Colleagues, I'm looking at our undertakers and our doctor on the team. Obviously, we have had a severe outbreak of the Delta variant after I made those comments. So we made the command decision, since the building was down to 25% occupancy. I strongly wish the public could be back with us. I also double checked. Our staff, as always was spot on the money, made sure the notice was there, made sure it was very clear that it was not in person. And of course, I don't want to get in the way of a good Joe Kent story or a good Joe Kent rant. So I hope we all enjoyed it. All right, adjourn or recess? I have a motion to adjourn, second, without objection. We are adjourned. Thank you.